Well, good morning, guys. Welcome back from the weekend. As always, got to start off with a joke. So here it is. What washes up on tiny beaches? Got any guesses? What washes up on tiny beaches? Well, that would be microwaves. All right, microwaves. You got it? I hope you did. So what we're doing today is kind of some more review, so this should be good. Short video. Hopefully I can just cut right to the chase and you guys can just start tackling that bookwork. Remember when you finish your journal pages, here they are, is 205 through 207, that you need to ask to do corrections. That's what we're trying to get done so that you guys can do your corrections by yourself. So that's kind of just helps everyone out. That's our goal. So we're talking about multiplying fractions and finding reciprocals and even mixed fractions. So let's start off with something simple. And this is, I'm not going right out of your book, but I can always look at a few problems. So we got 5 over 9 times 2/3. Okay, so when we multiply fractions, we always multiply across the top and then across the bottom. Now, some things to look out for. For example, if this was, for example, let's do a different color. If this happened to be 5 over 10, you could simplify it down to just simply 1 over 2. So that's something to look out for. So if you see a fraction that you can, within the multiplication problem, so if it was 5 over 10 times 2/3, you could simplify it and you could rewrite it as 1/2 times 2/3. So that could save you some work. Now it doesn't matter, you could go through the process and then simplify it, but typically it's easier to simplify smaller numbers than it is bigger numbers. So I think it helps you out in the long run. Now the other thing to look out for is not only can you simplify your fractions that you start out with, these two, but you can also simplify diagonally. So right here we can actually cross out because 2 and 2 go into each other, so that they can be divided by each other. So we can end up with just 1. So we end up with 1 over 1 times 1 over 3. Now just to double check, remember multiply across, so we end up with 1/3. We have 1 times 1, which is 1, and 1 times 3, which is 3. So you end up with 1/3. But let's just double check for the sake of it, just to make sure we're doing the right thing. So if we weren't going to cross out those 2's, it would be 1 times 2, which is 2, and 2 times 3, which is 6. Now if you simplify that down, it equals 1/3. So remember, you can simplify your fractions already as they are, or you can simplify diagonally. So those are things to look out for. So now back to our original problem. Can we simplify top and bottom? Nope. Can we simplify diagonally? Nope. So we're just going to multiply right across. So our answer would be 10 over 9 times 3 is 27. Alright, so factors of 27 would be 3 and 9. Neither of those go into 10. So that would be our final answer. Okay, get the process. If you don't get the process, talk to me and I'll help you. So let's go on to the next one. So now we're thinking, what if we have a mixed fraction? So we have 3 and 1/3 times 4 and 1/4. Okay, so what I found the easiest thing to do is break down your mixed fraction into a improper fraction is the name of it. So the way that we do that is we multiply our whole number by our denominator. So we do 3 times 3, which is 9, and then we add that up to the top. So we end up with 10. So we have 3 times 3, and then plus 1. So let's see I'll write the process. We do the whole number, that's the symbol for number, times denominator, so I'm just going to put denom, plus numerator. That's the process. Okay? So let's rewrite our fraction, all of them. So we have 3 times 3 plus 1, which is 10, and you got to make sure you keep your denominator the same. Times 4 times 4 is 16, plus 1 is 17, and we're still over 4. Now, before we move on, I know you're so anxious to multiply, let's simplify. So we can simplify 10 and 4, both can be divided by 2. So we're left with 2, and we're left with 5. So that just makes it a lot easier. So now let's do 5 times 17. Well, 17 and 3 don't have any, like, factors, common factors. So we need to do 5 times 17, which is, let's see, 85. Sounds about right. And 3 times 2 over 6. Okay, so make sure you check your directions. Sometimes they might say it's okay to leave your answer as an improper fraction, but sometimes they may want you to write it out as a, as a mixed fraction. So the way you do that is you figure out how many times does 6 go into 85, and then you're left with a remainder. So 6 goes into 85. Let me pull out a calculator real quick. 6 times, oops, not times, divided by, nope, other way, 85 divided by 6 equals 14.1. So our whole number is going to be 14. So now let's figure out how many times 6 is 14. So we're going to do 6 times 14, which equals 84. So now we're left with just 1 over 6. Because there's 1 remaining. There's 1 more to go left until they're the even number. Okay? So either one, you got to make sure that you check the instructions and what it says. Alright, I see our video is getting kind of long. Let's go to the last thing. Last thing is something called a reciprocal. Okay, when you see this word, what it simply means is turn your fraction upside down. So, I'll get behind the reason why, but here's what it is. So if it says find the reciprocal of 1 over 3, well, we just flip it. We flip our numerator to the bottom and our denominator to the top. So we end up with 3 over 1, which just equals 3. That's a reciprocal. We're just flipping it. Now here's the reason why. What you can do with the reciprocal is that if you multiply it by the reciprocal, it should always equal 1. So let's use our 1/3 and 3. So we found that the reciprocal of 1/3 is 3 over 1. Now the idea is that a reciprocal of a fraction equals 1. So this is how you can check your answer. So all these numbers go into each other. They're divisible by each other. So we're left with 1 over 1, which equals 1. So we know that this is a reciprocal. Okay, let's do something different. So we'll do 7/5. Find the reciprocal. Okay. So you just flip it. So we have 5 over 7. And if we were going to do multiplication, cross them out, you're left with 1 over 1. Okay, so if you see the reciprocal, that fancy word just means flip the fraction. I like that, flip the fraction. It's kind of catchy. Alright, we're at 9.5 minutes. I got to finish up. You do work hard, guys, and I'll see you in real life.